Good morning, everyone. How is everybody on this beautiful Saturday? What is it? November 12th, the opening of deer season. And here in St. Louis, Missouri, we had snow this morning, and I've already had Christmas music on. Hold on, gotta take a drink. Not enough coffee this morning. But it snowed. It absolutely snowed, and if it wasn't for I'm working today and a double tomorrow, my Christmas tree would be going up. I would remove all of the fall things and I would start to put out Christmas, because I'll tell you what, the one thing that this the people who are in charge of our country, I'll leave that right there, you can decipher. They have made us understand what is important to us, where the value is, where the richness comes in celebrating holidays and your Christianity or whichever higher power that you believe in. I am Kitryn Marie. I reside in St. Louis, Missouri, and I got a crazy hair here. Hang on one second. I swear I'm going to work on contacts. Anyway, I reside in St. Louis, Missouri. I'm an artist, a writer, a speaker, a life, and a business coach, and I'm elated this morning with seeing the snow. I was over on my TikTok this morning talking about how snow just kind of quiets everything. It makes you get comfortable. It makes you want to cocoon. It makes you want to find things that bring some real joy and a soothingness to your heart, to your life, to your home, for your family, so those around you can feel at peace, have tranquility and some security, and the loyalty and the trust that's built within the relationships with the people in your home or the ones that are close to you. I had briefly the other day talked about, these aren't the right glasses, but it's what I got right now. Briefly the other night I came on and did a very late night read talking about Veterans Day, and it's a little out of my norm. I normally don't talk about things like that because I'm really not an expert in that area, other than how depression and post-traumatic stress disorder affects so many who have been in the military. But depression and post-traumatic stress disorders and other anxiety and panic issues always seem to arise at the holidays. And we always resort back to a moment in our lives. We all do it, whether we realize it or not, but we all resort back to a moment in our life during the holidays where it was a stressful situation, or in the back of your mind when you were a child, it was a disappointment and you didn't get what you wanted. The hustle bustle of parents trying to make ends meet, trying to make sure that whomever was coming over, that there wasn't going to be a huge fight, that everybody was provided for. And I don't know what your Christmas and holidays were like. I can only go from what I know and from what I've experienced myself. And oftentimes, those that are not coupled up during the holidays, it brings on this loneliness. Those that have passed, that are not going to be here this year, the flooded memories, it's normal. It happens all the time. There's not a holiday that does not go by that I do not miss my dad, because my dad made Christmas magic. No matter what his idiosyncrasies were during the year, when it came to the holidays, he just went above and beyond and grand, and it sometimes was crazy and ridiculous, but that was my dad. At the holidays, he became a whole different human being. And I always like to think, why don't humans carry that experience all through the years? You don't need to be gift givers, but you can be a joyful person. You can bring happiness. You can spread joy. You can tell really good and happy stories, and you can relate to others that come into your life so others want to be in your life. As a woman who is, I have to stop and think, 61, I'll be 62 in July, I still think love should be like a Hallmark movie. I still think it should be full of wonder and awe and magic and some sort of fantasy. I think it should have its highs with its big crescendos. I think there should be conversations and romance and things that you can relate to that other in the relationship, that they are wanting the same things, that they are wanting to heart grow, that they are wanting to feel security within a home. Oftentimes, logistics plays the biggest part in a lot of our relationships. And the older we get so set in our ways. We know what we are not going to tolerate, but yet we don't know what we will tolerate because certain situations have not worked out the way that we've wanted for a lot of different people. For the younger generation who are in their 30s and 40s, who maybe have been married already once and they still have that hope of finding that perfect partner. They have children and they're trying to raise their kids and combining households and combining kids. Where my generation, we've raised our kids, we love our grandkids, we want them in our lives, but yet we're still entitled to that magic part of romance, finding that one person that will be the be all and the end all of our life. I had a conversation with my cousin Stephanie last week, I believe it was, and my Uncle Ted is not doing real well. He is managing find the best that he can in his life. His wife is taking care of him. He was in a facility where they were trying to get him back healthy and able to move around, and I believe he's back home now. But I had said to my cousin Stephanie, I think in my own mind, because I took care of my dad when my dad was sick and dying, I worry about whomever it is I allow in my life if they have not continued to be on this health path, and far better, far worse, for richer, for poorer, taking care of somebody knowing that I may lose them. And although it is a fact of life, we don't live forever, although I plan to live to be 116 and drive everybody insane. I worry about, even with my own health issues, and I take really good care of myself, is it fair to the other person to take on that type of care? Especially if that person on the other end did not take care of themselves during their life, and now it is to be expected. I'm from a different generation than my parents or my grandparents, and my grandma always said it's easy to love a poor man, or just as easy to love a poor man as it is to love a rich man. And where money has never been a factor in my relationships, because I love based on a connection, on what I feel bonded to that other person. And although I personally believe, and I won't use the word twin flames or soulmates, because you can have soulmates in many different lives and many different relationships. But I often think if there has been a relationship in another life and it didn't finish out the way that it was supposed to, you get to repeat that again in this life. And until you get it right, when you end this life and you go on to the next one, guess whose soul is going to show up in your world? Now, whether you believe that or not, that depends on your belief. But I wanted to tell you just briefly, because I like to tell stories, and this may not be briefly, but I've got to get out the door here, and I got to be somewhere by 11 o'clock, so I got time. It's 10:05. But I want to briefly talk about the book Commitment by, I believe, Elizabeth Gilbert. The Eat, Love, Pray. And I have talked about this before. And if you're familiar with Eat, Love, Pray, it's one of my very favorite movies. But in the end, when she decides she's going to choose Felipe, and she had been running and trying to find herself in different avenues through her life, the character in the book, who was portrayed by Julia Roberts, I believe. And the sequel to that is Commitments, but in kind of a real life, where Elizabeth Gilbert, as she's telling that part of the story in Eat, Love, Pray, in Commitments, she talks about when her and Felipe returned back to the States, there was immigration situations and he was deported. And the only way that he could stay in this country was if they were to get married. And they had always decided marriage wasn't the answer. If they were making the commitment to each other, why did they need a piece of paper? And the whole book, you have to read the book, it's really good. But it talks about how marriage came about through the church, how governments made money on it. Think of your marriage license you have to pay for. Think of the taxes that you have to pay when you're married and combined and so on and so forth. But she talks very much about somebody in her town that she was interviewing because she was trying to find out why America bases love on a feeling. You know, you hear so many people say, "Oh my God, I'm so in love." Is it love or is it a red flag? Is it butterflies in your stomach or is it a warning that something is not right and something is missing? You know, I grew up and the later part of watching the Gidget movies with Moondoggie. And I thought as a child that's what love was supposed to be. And I was going to grow up and I was going to find my Moondoggie and I was going to go off into the sunset on some beach and I was going to live this happily ever life in this huge big house with a big picket fence and a bunch of kids and a bunch of animals. Well, I got the animals, but nothing else happen that way because that's not real life. It's a movie. It's what is given to us in an image, and then we have to perceive what is working best for our own lives and realizing what reality is and what fantasy is and what isn't meeting the reality or the image that we have in our own mind. So as Elizabeth Gilbert is talking about somebody that she interviewed from her town. I believe she was from Minnesota. And every Sunday she would see, and I'm going to give fake names because I don't know what the characters' names, but she would see Jim and Laura May in church. And they were well in their 90s, and he took care of her. She had dementia. And on an afternoon, Elizabeth Gilbert had interviewed Jim, and she said, "I don't understand the for better, for worse. From your decade, from your generation, what can you explain to me?" And he said, "When I met my wife," he said, "it wasn't all love and bells and rocket ships and fireworks." He said, "My older brother had come to me, Ed, and he said, 'It's time for you to choose a wife. Ma, Pa are getting old. We have this farm, and it's up to us to take it over.' And as his children, since he was the eldest, he was already married, and tradition, handing down generation, having strong children and strong spouses to take care of the farm that they lived. And he said, 'It's time. You need to go pick a wife, choose a wife.' And Jim said, 'I don't really know anybody.' And Ed said, 'There has to be somebody in town that you know that you kind of like.' And he said, 'Well, there is this girl who looks real nice when I go into the general store, and she speaks very nice.' He said, 'She's pleasant to look at. It's not hard to look at her.' And Ed said, 'Well, why don't you go strike up a conversation with her?' So eventually, Jim gets the courage and he goes into the general store and he starts to speak with her a little bit more, trying to find things out, like, do they have the same belief? Although they did go to the same church in the small town. Did they politically have the same things in common? How did she feel about having children? Now, remember, we're talking probably in the early 50s. We're talking late 40s, maybe, right at the end of World War II. And Jim goes back to his brother and he says, she smells very nice. He said, she speaks really well. We seem to have the same belief. And the older brother said, well, then why don't you start courting her? After church this Sunday, go talk to their family, the family, and ask if you may take the daughter out. Now, the older brother had married his high school sweetheart. And we all know that is far and few between. And although that does happen, in reality, probably 3 out of 10 that you may know marry, and maybe it may not even be bad. It might be 3 out of 15 who get to marry their high school sweetheart. And honestly, the older we get, the more we know. Sometimes we're glad we didn't marry our high school sweethearts. But back to the story, Jim asked the parents, "Can I take your daughter out?" And he courts her for about a good 6 months, and he finds out, they do have a lot in common. And he realized maybe she would be a strong suit to help take care of a farm, to raise a family. And he goes back and he says, I think I'm going to ask her to marry me. He said, but I don't know if it's love. And the older brother said, don't worry about love, because it will come later. And being in America, we base everything on a feeling. And in other countries, parents pick their partners for their children. Strong suits, same beliefs, same political affiliates. And so here they get married, and, Elizabeth Gilbert is interviewing him later in life, and she says, I see you take care of her. And he said, I can't imagine anybody else taking care of her. He said in the beginning, it was just ugly. He said, we didn't get along. He said, there were so many personal things about each other, because as a man having a need and a woman who has never, and then trying to find that mold within the first year of our marriage. And then it wasn't too long after that first year, our first child came along. And then the second child came along. He said, and then you throw in the whole dynamics of no longer are you a newlywed, but now you have a family that you have to provide for. By today's standards, if you look at your own life and you look at who you would like to marry, or who you would want in your life, or who you would want to take care of you when you get old, who you want to represent you, who you want on your arm, and, the superficial person that I think I am at times, arm candy is still important. That person that matches your personality, that person that matches your looks. And not that you need to be matchy, but it's a compliment to each other. When somebody outside sees you, they automatically think of who your partner is if they are not there. And I think by today's standards of what we are looking for in terms of relationships, we dismiss the fact that not everything is based on that first look, that first love at first sight, that first what really do you have in common? Because in America, I think the average divorce rate now is about after 7 years, people are getting divorced. After 3 years, people are so disillusioned with their choice because they weren't putting it into the proper perspective. And although, like I say, I still think love should be like a Hallmark movie, there are aspects in all relationships where you can have that if the other person knows what that effect is. We have love languages. Mine is build me. I'm not a gift taker. I don't need to be bought for and showered with gifts like that. That's not who I am. Bond. Have a conversation with me. Be deep rooted in a belief system. Think of your own belief system. Who believes like you do? We all came from different family backgrounds, different family dynamics. I grew up in a musical family. My mom sang semi-professional. My dad played instruments by ear. My grandfather was an accomplished bass player in a band for a million years. My sister sang in a band for a million years. I'm the artist. I think outside the box. I do nothing in the lines. And those that were told 9 to 5, let a corporation take care of you, have, a paycheck, have insurance, life insurance, have a will. And although I'm in the process of trying to put the whole will thing together and the beneficiary to make sure that my children have what I have or what's left to my grandchildren in a legacy that I'm trying to build with the horse ranch that I want, it's who has that same belief with you. It's not who's going to sit at a bar stool next to you, who's going to outdrink you under the table. It's not, who you're going to fight and fuck with. It's who you can live every day in your life with, that when you're sitting on the other side of the room with that person doing whatever, do you like them? It's not do you love them, but do you like them? I've loved a lot of people and let them go because I did not like the behavior that they were showing towards the end of the relationship. And it's okay to say, I may love you, but I don't like you and I don't have to have you in my space. And whether that other person is willing to work and change on the things, because trust me, I am not an easy person to deal with. My expectations is not because they're high, but it's because I have a standard for my life. Logistics plays a very big part when you are going with somebody for a long period of time. If it's not heading towards the same result, the same big picture, why continue to spin wheels? I want to get to a farm. I want a horse ranch. I want to leave this house. I want to move out of this area, whether it be 4 hours away towards Branson or 8 hours away towards Gatlinburg. My goal is to leave. My goal is to teach my art classes, to speak. My goal is to put together merchandise and sell on my property. It's about what you have in common to reach that other goal, the same goal that somebody else has, that same love that grows with time because you like who the other person is that you've allowed into your life. So as I get ready here to go out the door, I got to get snow off my car. I was so happy to see snow this morning. I've got a few things that are going on. I have a contractor coming to the house to take care of an electric issue that I'm not real crazy about, but he was referred from a friend, from a friend, from a friend. Tyler is handling that. After that gets situated, I'm going to start working on painting my kitchen, getting it together, because it's those little things that in my home, because your home is a reflection of who you are. And when you have people come into your home and they look around, they can identify the feeling. They can see the hands-on effort that you have put in putting together a home. It might be a house, it might be a shell, but it's about all the things that are inside of it and what evokes the emotion for those that come to the door that are welcome to come into your space. So I am Kitryn Marie. I'm an artist, a writer, speaker, life and a business coach residing in St. Louis, Missouri for today. For always be happy, be blessed, be very thankful for all the things that do come into your life. Remember, fate does turn on a dime, and only you get to decide what side of that coin you want to be on. If you would like to learn more about me, Google Kitryn Marie. Go over to kitryn-marie.weebly.com to see all that I offer. If you're interested in a painting class, where's my painting? In a painting class, it's $45 a person. You being the eighth, it is free. If you're interested in a vision board class where we talk about self-awareness and self-growth and love and money and your mindset in a lot of different areas and why you are feeling lack and why you are not having the things in your life, because we emit a frequency and it's who you vibe with. And that vibe attracts and brings people into your life. So please reach out, kitrynmarie@gmail.com. The vision board class is $35 too, by the way. You supply those materials. So y'all take care, stay warm, and I'll see you soon. Bye. Oh, and now it doesn't want to go off. Go phone.